Hey there, welcome back to the channel. You used to explain yourself. Every time they ignored you, disrespected you, made you feel small, you still explained. You still showed up. You still tried to fix things that weren't yours to fix. But then something changed. You got tired. Tired of repeating yourself. Tired of crying over someone who only heard you when you screamed. Tired of giving love to someone who only knew how to take. So, you did the most powerful thing you've ever done. You went silent. No big announcement. No dramatic exit. Just silence. And now, they're losing it. Because they were never ready for a version of you that doesn't beg, doesn't chase, doesn't explain. They're checking your stories, asking mutual friends, posting things they hope you'll see. But nothing's working, because your silence is louder than your words ever were. This isn't revenge. This is healing. This isn't punishment. This is protection. They thought your silence was weakness. But now they see it's power, it's peace, and it's driving them crazy. Because people don't miss you when you argue. They miss you when you disappear. In this video, we're going to break down the 7 psychological truths about why your silence is making them spiral, and why it's the greatest thing you've ever done for your peace. And before we dive in, I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. My silence speaks louder than the pain they caused. Number 1, they realized you were their emotional mirror. They didn't fall for your silence. They fell apart because of it. See, they were never listening to you. They were watching you. Watching how you always reached out after a fight. How you always forgave first. How you explained, cried, pleaded, just to be heard, just to feel seen. You became their mirror. You reflected their power, their control, their ego. But the moment you stopped explaining yourself, the mirror shattered. And when the mirror's gone, they're forced to look at themselves. And they hate what they see, because now there's no more validation, no one to chase after them, no one to patch the cracks they created in the first place. Your silence stripped them of their ability to feel in control, and that's when the panic sets in. Psychologically, this is called narcissistic injury, when someone who depends on external validation feels deeply wounded by your lack of response. And that silence, that's what breaks them. They start questioning everything. Why aren't they texting? Who are they with? Do they not care anymore? And the truth is, you do care. You just care about your peace more now. Epictetus once said, "We cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them." You stopped responding with desperation. You responded with detachment. And that's what flipped the dynamic. Now they're stuck in the loop you once lived in, overthinking, overanalyzing, overreacting. And you're finally free. Drop this in the comments if you feel this. I'm no longer explaining myself to people who chose not to understand me. Number 2, they didn't value you until your silence spoke. There was a time they thought you'd never leave. They believed your love was endless, that no matter how they treated you, you'd stay. You forgave them, over and over. You showed up, even when they didn't. You gave your heart, your energy, your patience, and they got comfortable. They thought your presence was permanent, but it wasn't. You see, love is not a guarantee. It's a gift. And when someone keeps taking that gift without gratitude, eventually the giver walks away. That's what they never saw coming, your silence. And it wasn't a dramatic goodbye. No warning, no last message, just space, just stillness. That kind of silence, it hits differently, because it forces them to sit with themselves, to sit in the empty room your presence once filled. to wonder why the calls stopped, why the messages don't come, why your name doesn't light up their phone anymore. And that's when the regret starts to creep in, not because they suddenly changed, but because they finally realized what they lost. Your silence made them question everything. Were you really done? Did they push you too far? Can they ever get you back? It's not your job to answer those questions anymore. Psychologists talk about something called emotional dissonance. It's when someone starts to feel discomfort because the reality they once depended on, your love, your attention, your presence, is no longer available. And that discomfort, it leads to realization. But sometimes realization comes too late. Now they scroll through old photos, reread old messages, replay memories like maybe one more rewind will bring you back. But it won't, because your silence is not a tactic. It's a decision, it's peace, it's healing, and that's something they can't interrupt anymore. As the Stoic philosopher Seneca once said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." And you? You decided not to waste another second explaining your worth. You went quiet, not because you didn't care, but because you finally started caring about yourself more. And that silence, it became the loudest truth they've ever heard. Number 3, they didn't think you'd move on. They thought you'd stay stuck, that even if you stopped reaching out, deep down, you'd still be waiting. They assumed you'd keep checking their profile, replaying memories, hoping for a message. They thought you might try to act strong, but they were sure it was just a front. But then something happened that they didn't expect. You actually moved on. You stopped thinking about them all day. You stopped wondering what they were doing. You stopped needing them to choose you. And that's when everything shifted. At first, they didn't notice. They thought you were just being distant, playing hard to get, waiting for them to make the next move. But over time, they started to feel it. The energy changed. The way you used to light up when they called, gone. The way you used to respond instantly, heart open and hopeful, replaced by silence, indifference, peace. That's when it hit them. You weren't pretending to move on. You had. And now they're the one stuck. Psychologically, this moment is called perceived loss of control. It's when someone who once felt they had emotional influence over you suddenly realizes they don't. They can't get a reaction, can't spark a feeling, can't pull you back. And the fear kicks in, not fear of losing love, but fear of losing control over someone who used to care too much. Now they're watching you from a distance, not just existing, but evolving, laughing more, glowing differently, surrounded by people who respect your energy. And the worst part for them, knowing you became this version of yourself without them, knowing your healing had nothing to do with their apology, because they never gave one. You gave that to yourself. Epictetus once said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life, and your freedom from them. It's loud, it's undeniable, it's powerful. You didn't just move on, you leveled up. You reclaimed your time, your heart, your peace." And they can feel that shift in their chest every time they see your name, because now they know. The door they thought would always be open has closed. And you're not looking back. Number 4, they realized too late that your silence wasn't revenge. It was recovery. At first, they thought you were playing games, that your silence was just another way to get attention. They assumed you were trying to punish them, make them jealous, or force them to chase. But the truth was far more painful for them. Your silence wasn't revenge. It wasn't about them at all. It was about you. It was about healing, protecting your peace, pulling yourself out of the emotional chaos they kept dragging you into. You weren't trying to hurt them, you were trying to survive what they put you through. That's when the weight of it all hits them, when they scroll through old conversations and realize you used to pour your soul into every message, when they remember how you used to fight for the connection while they pulled away, when they realize you were never playing a game, you were just giving them chances, and they ran out of them. Your silence now speaks volumes, not out of hate, but out of exhaustion. You're not cold. You're just done explaining yourself to someone who never listened when you were speaking. In psychology, this is called emotional closure. It's when someone reaches a place where they no longer need validation or apologies. They find peace without answers. You found peace. And now they're stuck in a storm they created, a storm they thought you'd drown in. But you didn't drown. You rebuilt, quietly, strongly, silently. And nothing is more terrifying to someone who used to hurt you than realizing you no longer want anything from them. Not love, not clarity, not even closure. As the Stoics teach, he who angers you controls you. And you took that control back the moment you chose silence over chaos. Now, they're left with echoes of your laughter, your love, your energy, things they once took for granted, things they thought would always be available. But what they never understood is that silence is not the absence of feeling. It's the loudest form of truth. And now they're realizing the truth. You were never trying to hurt them. You were trying to heal yourself, and in doing so, you disappeared from a place they thought you'd never leave. Number 5. Your distance forced them to face their own reflection. When you were around, they had someone to distract them from themselves. Your presence filled the silence they were too scared to sit in. Your energy carried the emotional weight they refused to acknowledge. But now, without your voice, without your comfort, without your constant giving, they're left with something they've avoided all along, their own reflection, and that's what truly haunts them. Because the moment you step back, the excuses stopped working. The blame didn't land. The distractions fell flat. They couldn't point fingers anymore because the chaos they once blamed on you was still there, without you. That's the moment it hits them. You weren't the problem. You were the mirror. You reflected the parts of them they didn't want to see. The insecurities, the emotional immaturity, the fear of intimacy. They saw it all in your responses, your tears, your silence. But instead of growing, they ran. They pushed you away. And now, there's no one left to protect them from their own truth. In psychology, this is often described as emotional displacement. It's when someone places their emotional discomfort onto another person to avoid facing themselves. You were their outlet. But when that outlet vanished, so did the illusion. Now they're sitting in the aftermath of their own choices, realizing it wasn't you who made them feel unlovable. It was the way they refused to love you right. Epictetus once said, "People are not disturbed by things, but by the views they take of them." And now, their view has changed. The version of you they once labeled too emotional or too much was actually just someone brave enough to care deeply. And the version of them they once thought was strong is now exposed as emotionally unavailable. They thought you walking away would be quiet. But the truth is, your absence screamed louder than any fight ever could. And now, they're left with no one to rescue them from the silence, because the person they pushed away was the one person who truly saw them and still tried to stay. Now, they're forced to look inward, and for some people, that's the scariest place of all. Number 6. Your silence exposed what words could never prove. There were moments when you tried to explain. You tried to make them see what their actions were doing to you. You tried to hold the connection together with your voice, your tears, your truth. But they didn't listen. Not because you weren't clear, but because they never intended to understand. They heard your words as noise, not as a cry for connection. And so, one day, you stopped trying. That silence wasn't just the absence of sound. It was the presence of power. The moment you stopped explaining, stopped defending, stopped proving your worth, they were finally forced to confront a reality they'd been ignoring. They lost someone who only ever wanted to love them right. Silence isn't passive. It's a statement. It's the moment you say, "I no longer need you to understand. I understand myself now." And that terrifies people who depended on your confusion to keep control. Because now they're left with unanswered questions. Questions like, why aren't they chasing me anymore? Why does it feel so empty now? Was I really the problem? That's what silence does. It turns the table. It makes them sit in the very uncertainty they once made you drown in. In psychology, this is the impact of emotional boundary setting. When you go silent, not out of pettiness but from peace, you reclaim the emotional space that used to be manipulated. And your detachment. That's the clearest message you'll ever send. Stoic philosopher Zeno once said, "Silence is a lesson learned through life's many sufferings." You learned that lesson. You realized some people don't deserve access to the deepest parts of you just because they once had it. You healed the part of you that felt the need to over-explain, to overcompensate, to prove your love. Now they're the ones left trying to decode the quiet. But you're not giving them anything more to work with, because your peace no longer includes their chaos. And for them, that silence is louder than any argument, more painful than any goodbye. Because it means you're no longer emotionally accessible, and once they feel that distance, they finally realize they can't reach you anymore, not because you're far away, but because you finally outgrew them. Number 7, they realized too late. You were the one who truly cared. At first, they thought you were replaceable, that someone else would come along and give them what you gave, without the effort, without the patience, without the love that ran deep. But now, they know. No one has stayed. No one has loved them the way you did. No one has seen their darkness and still chosen to stay with light in their eyes like you did. They mistook your empathy for weakness, your loyalty for desperation. But what they couldn't see in the moment, they now feel in your absence. And it hits differently when it's quiet, when there are no arguments, no text threads, no you. That's when they start connecting the dots. They replay your moments. They scroll through old pictures. They wonder how they fumbled someone who only wanted to grow with them. And that question, it haunts them more than any closure ever could. Psychologists call this delayed emotional impact. When someone doesn't process what they had until it's gone, and the brain finally registers that it's really over. Not because you blocked them, but because you healed, because you moved forward, because you're not looking back anymore. As Rumi once wrote, try not to resist the changes that come your way. Instead, let life live through you. You let life transform you. You allowed pain to teach you. You let go not to punish them, but to save yourself. And that choice, it was everything. Now, they realize you were never the desperate one. You were the deep one, the rare one, the real one. And in a world full of surface-level connections and ego-driven games, they'll remember you as the one who loved them fully, before they were ready to receive it. But that door is closed now, not because you're bitter, but because you've learned better. Your healing doesn't include returning to someone who couldn't recognize your value when it was theirs to hold. Your silence isn't revenge, it's revelation. You were the one. And now, they know it. Too late. So, not broken, not bitter, just wiser, stronger, louder in your silence than you ever were in your pleas. The version of you that once chased is gone, and in its place stands someone who knows their worth, protects their peace, and doesn't beg to be chosen anymore. They wanted you to chase, but they never expected you to disappear into your glow-up. They never thought your silence would echo in their soul, louder than your love ever could. But now they're the ones looking back, regretting, replaying, running from the truth that they lost something real. You didn't lose them, you found you, and that's the victory. If this video spoke to your heart, I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. My silence is my strength. I've moved on, and I'm not looking back. And if you're walking through this right now, if you're in the process of choosing yourself, know this: you're not alone. This channel is your space for healing, for clarity, for transformation. Every week we speak truth, power, and emotional freedom into your life. So if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you never miss a video that speaks your truth. And if this helped you, share it, because someone out there needs this reminder too. Remember, the strongest revenge isn't anger, it's peace, it's silence. It's becoming so rooted in your worth that no one can shake it again. They're losing it because you found yourself, and that's your real glow-up.